everyone, and welcome back to Homework Hotline, the show with the helping hands on all your homework needs. I'm your host, Isaiah Gear, as always, and welcome back to the show. We hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving season and are prepared for the season of giving ahead. Speaking of giving, we have some very special tutors joining us for today, giving you the knowledge and all the helping hands on all your homework needs. So each episode, we'll be going over certain subjects for a certain amount of time, and you guys can join live at our Twitch channel at Hawk Media Group News and ask questions. Meanwhile, our beloved tutors will be working on sample problems based on the topics currently being worked on in your classes. So without any further ado, let's get our homework on for today. Here I have joined with us for our wonderful tutors, Erica, James, Vincent, and Graciela. Leticia also supporting us in the background. But we're going to be actually starting off with James for today. Hey, James, welcome back to the show. What are you going to be teaching for us today?
Hey, Isaiah. I'm going to be going over some trigonometry. I thought it would be good for some of the basic geometry class students to get the hang of, and some physics kids if they need a little bit of review.
Well, that's awesome, James. We have the Jamboard access just for you. You may go right ahead into your lesson in trigonometry.
Awesome, thanks. All right, guys, so trigonometry basics deals with right triangles. This right triangle here is the fundamentals of trigonometry. So the first basic functions that you need to know are sine, cosine, and tangent. And basically what each of these functions are just different relationships in the triangle. So if you look over here at this blue theta sign, you can see that this side right here is the opposite. This side right here is the adjacent side, and this is the hypotenuse. It's all in relation to where the theta is. This green one right here, this is the adjacent, it's the opposite, hypotenuse. And what the thetas are, they're basically little placeholders for the degree of the angle in this triangle. So if our green theta here was 30 degrees, it would be 30 degrees of whatever trigonometric function you need is equal to the relationship of the sides. So I thought I'd start us off with this sample problem here. If a man is standing on top of a building and looking at the base of a tree 5 miles away at an angle of 60 degrees, how tall is the building he is standing on? So this sounds like a totally weird question that you'd be asked. I honestly would never think that I would be asked, how tall is the building some random guy is standing on looking at a tree? But using these trigonometric functions, we can figure out how tall the building is. So I like to first start off by drawing our triangle. And as you can see here with the base of the tree and the building, it all kind of lines up quite nicely. We have our 90-degree angle right here. And the problem tells us that the angle he is looking at is 60 degrees. So we can just plug in right here 60 degrees. And we also want to know how tall the building is. So first step is we're going to write down our equation. So looking at these functions right here, we should decide that we need the tangent function because we have the opposite, which is 5. Forgot to mention that, sorry. And then we need to know the adjacent side, which is the x here, the building. So you plug in your function, tangent of 60 degrees equals 5 over x. Next step after that, you're gonna wanna isolate this x here, but you can't really do that because if you multiply the x over here to the tangent side, you would end up with x times tangent 60 equals 5. So we still haven't isolated the x. So the step right after that is to divide out this tangent 60. Now, in your calculators, you're really gonna wanna just leave this all the same until you get to the final step here of x equals 5 over tangent 60. And then I would right away just plug that in there and hit enter and see what it gives you out. And if you plug this in correctly, it should spit out 1.73 miles. Now that sounds like an extremely tall building, but I tried to make this a simple equation that anyone could grasp with a hand of. Since the base of the tree is 5 miles away, we're gonna keep that unit. Let's say that they gave us this angle here. rather than using the tangent function with opposite and adjacent, we would probably go with the sine function or the tangent function again. We would go with the tangent function again, but rather than putting 5 over x, we would put the x over 5 and then multiply it out. All right, guys, that's all I have planned for you today. This is just the basics of trigonometry and a simple equation. Please let me know if you guys have any more questions. Back to you, Isaiah.
All right, that was awesome, James. Thank you so much for teaching that lesson. I just feel infinitely time smarter right now after that. But now we're going to bring it to Graciela. But before we do that, let me give a quick little shout out to our Homework Hotline crew. You guys are so awesome. Jose, Ethan, Nick, and Miss McLean helping us through. And also we have some additional supporters joining us today. Brianna Bolkins, host of World News, which airs every Monday. Angel Espinoza, he edits Screenhawks, a show that I'm also a part of. Check that out every Friday. And Kendra Kesterson, our wonderful president of HMG News and our script editor for all of our shows. So thankful to have all you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, now we are going to get into Graciela, and also QR code right over here. You can go follow that and check out all the links to any more helping hands that you might need on your homework. So, Graciela, what will you be teaching for us today?
Okay, so hi guys. So I'm going to be going over rhetorical analysis. This is something that is taught in AP Lang, which I took last year, and it is also looked over again in English 101 for any of you guys who are taking that Jumpstart course. So I'm just going to dive right into it. So, rhetorical analysis. So with rhetorical analysis, you have to ask yourself 3 questions when you're looking at a text. And as I have it right here, those questions are what, why, and how. And you have to ask yourself these questions whenever going over any text, because you're going to be analyzing anything when you're doing rhetorical analysis. So it's going to be what rhetorical device or appeal is being used, why is that rhetorical device or appeal being used, and how does it support or benefit the author? So the little text that I added onto here was MLK's I Have a Dream speech. So let me just move this over right here. And for this first part, I'm going to be going over the rhetorical device being used. So as we can see here in this little passage that I included, there's a lot of repetition. In each beginning paragraph, it says, I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. And, for those of you who are in AP Lang, you can't just say, this is repetition. No, we have to get more specific whenever we're dealing with rhetorical devices in AP Lang. This is referred to as an anaphora. An anaphora is the type of repetition that happens in the beginning of a certain stanza or paragraph. So the anaphora right here is, I have a dream. So I'm going to quickly underline that right now. I have a dream, I have a dream, I have a dream. So let's ask ourselves the first question. What rhetorical device is being used? I answered that, and that's anaphora. So why is this rhetorical device or appeal being used? So now this is where things start to get a little bit tricky. You have to ask yourself, why is the author doing this? So in the case of MLK, the whole reason for his I Have a Dream speech was to present to this big public his ideas that he has and how he wants freedom and equality for everybody. So why is he saying I have a dream repetitively? He's saying this because he wants to make a point. He wants it to be evident that this is a dream that he has that he hopes can be accomplished one day. And the final question that we have to answer is, how did this support or benefit the author? Well, this is where we have to start thinking about the exigence of a piece. So what exigence means is the whole background of why the author is writing the piece in the first place. What is the author's situation right now that prompts them to write the piece? And in the case of MLK, he wanted to spread his ideas about equality in America. So how does this rhetorical appeal help him do this So it helps him do so because whenever there's repetition, that'll stand out to listeners and people who are reading his piece. They'll see that this is something, a reoccurring theme, and they'll take interest in that and remember it. So that's rhetorical analysis when it comes to a rhetorical device. Now, when you're dealing with appeals, as Mr. Simmons has probably gone over with you guys in AP Lang, there are 3 rhetorical appeals. There's ethos, pathos, and lastly, logos. And of course, this will vary depending on the pieces you're analyzing. But in the case of MLK's I Have a Dream speech, we can see that pathos is what's being used most because this is a very emotional piece. He wants his listeners to feel like understanding and see the emotions that is tied towards his ideas. And when it comes to rhetorical analysis of appeals, it's a lot easier to analyze than rhetorical devices because with rhetorical devices, you have to get very specific on what you're doing. So yeah, guys, that's how you go over rhetorical analysis for those of you in AP Lang or English 101. I'll give it back to Isaiah.
All right, that was awesome, Gracie. Thank you so much. I feel much more confident about my exam coming up for that. Whether you guys are in AP Lang or English 101, 102, Gracie is a big help when it comes to this kind of stuff, and we love to have her on the show. And there seems to be a lot of support and output after your lesson, Graciela. We have I Am Camel 11, our esteemed fan. Great to have you as always, saying super helpful. We have Rachel from A Little Bit of Light, that awesome show. She's also says that this also helps a lot. Tristan from Let Me Put You On, giving his support, and Raquel and Kayleen, both from Raving for Retail. So great job, Graciela, on your lesson. Everyone seems to have loved it. But now we are going to switch things over to the math whiz himself, the master of Algebra 2, Mr. Vincent, with your lesson. Great to have you back on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Isaiah. All right. So today, more Algebra 2. I want to go over solving polynomials by factoring. There's a couple different ways to do it, so I'm going to have 3 examples showing both ways. So let's write our first example up here. All right, so now let's say you're asked to find all the values of x. So the first step we want to do is move all the terms to one side. And we want to try to have the leading coefficient positive. So like the leading coefficient right here is 3, because it's with the term with the highest degree of 3. So we want to try to keep that positive, or the polynomial gets like pretty weird. So let's subtract the 4x squared from each side, and we'll get 3x to the third minus 4x squared plus x. So now we can set this equal to 0, and we can solve it. So the first thing we want to look for is a GCF. Here we see we do have a GCF, it's x, so we can take that out. It becomes 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. Now that we have the GCF out, and we have a quadratic inside the parentheses, we can solve the quadratic. I'm going to use the cross and box method. I went over this a month and a half ago for the first lesson. So I'm just going to go a quick overview of it. So top of the cross, we have our C term multiplied by the coefficient of A is 3. And the bottom of the box, we have our coefficient of B, which is -4. Now we need to get 3 numbers that multiply to 3 and add to -4. In this case, it's -3, -1. And now we can set up our box. It's a really good way to visualize the factors here. And we write top left box, we write our A term, 3x squared. Bottom right box, we write our C term, which is 1. And the 2 other boxes, we use what we split up of the -4x. So we have the -3, and we keep the x with it, and the -1, which is just -x. Now we look for the greatest common factors. The first column here, 3x squared and -x, we can see that we have an x as the greatest common factor. And on the second column, negative 3x and 1, there is no greatest common factor, so it's just 1. Keep the sign of the closest box, which is negative. So x minus 1 is the first factor. Now looking at our first row, 3x squared and negative 3x, our greatest common factor here is 3x. And the second row, once again, is negative 1. Keep the sign of the closest box. So now we have 3 factors. We have, always remember the GCF you took out. We have x minus 1, and 3x minus 1. Now we set each equal to 0 and we solve. So, I mean, x set that equal to 0 is just 0. So the first one is 0. X minus 1, set that equal to 0. We have to add 1 to both sides. We get x equals 1. 3x minus 1, set that equal to 0. Add 1 to both sides. We get 3x equals 1. Divide each side by 3. Get x equals 1/3. And these are our 3 answers for the first example. That was cross and box. So now let's move on to an example with factoring by grouping. So if we have x cubed plus x squared minus 4x minus 4. This is our second example. It's already all on one side, so we can just set this equal to 0. So now there's 4 terms, so we cannot factor by using cross and box, so we have to use grouping. So we split the middle, we get 2 terms on the left, 2 terms on the right. Going over this pretty quickly because hopefully it's a little bit of a review. So we look at our first 2 terms on the left side, try to take the GCF out. Well, there's a GCF of x squared here. So we take out x squared. What's left? X plus 1. The 2 terms on the right side, our GCF, negative 4x and negative 4, is negative 4. And inside the parentheses is x plus 1. The 2 insides of the parentheticals, I guess is the word, should be equal. They should have the same value, so x plus 1 and x plus 1. If they're not equal, then you cannot factor by grouping. You have to use like rational root theorem or something. So now we can set our 2 factors. We use our GCFs as the first factor, so x squared and minus 4. And our second factor is the common one that we took out, x plus 1. We just set each equal to 0. But before you do that, what you should notice is that this one here is a difference of squares. So we can break this up a little bit further into x plus 2 and x minus 2. Which will make our lives easier. And we still have the x plus 1. We just set each equal to 0. So you get x equals negative 2 for this one, positive 2 for this one, and negative 1, which is your answer for the second example. So let's do one more. A bit more complicated because it's going to involve a couple of different steps. All right, first things first, we know it's not all on one side. So we want to try to get it to one side and set it equal to 0. Let's move everything to the left so that the leading coefficient of 3 is still positive. So now we are left with 3x cubed plus 12x squared minus 2x minus 8. And we can set that equal to 0. Now, once again, factor by grouping, split up the middle. So there's 2 terms on each side. GCF of the left 2 terms, 3x cubed and 12x squared. You can take out a 3x squared. Write that on the outside. And we're left with an x plus 4. And the 2 terms on the right, negative 2x and negative 8. We can take out a negative 2, and we're left with x. X plus 4 again. Right, because it has to be the same in order for the factor by grouping to work. So now we have our 2 factors we can take out. First one is our GCFs, 3x squared minus 2. Second one is the common one that we have, is x plus 4. Now we got to set each equal to 0 and solve. This one's going to be a bit more difficult. You'll see why. So 3 x squared minus 2 is equal to 0. First thing we do, add 2 to each side. Get 3x squared equals positive 2. We have to divide each side by 3 to isolate the x. So we get x squared is equal to 2 over 3. Now to get the x isolated, it's an x squared, so we have to take the square root of both sides. And now we're left with x is equal to, always remember plus or minus, because you're taking the square root. And we can express rad 2 over 3 as just rad 2 over rad 3. But here we have a radical in the denominator. We have rad 3. We need to get rid of that, otherwise the fraction is it won't really work. So we got to rationalize it, multiply the top and the bottom by root 3. Once you do that, you're left with x equals plus or minus. Top of the fraction, we have root 2 times root 3, which is just root 6. Over bottom of the fraction, we have root 3 times root 3, which is root 9. Square root of 9 is 3. So we have plus or minus rad 6 over 3, which is for the 3x squared minus 2. And then we still have the x plus 4. We just set that equal to 0. That's pretty simple. X equals negative 4. So your 3 answers for this one, you get negative 4, and then plus or minus the rad 6 over 3. So if you notice, there's three values for x here, the negative 4, and then there's a positive and negative version of the rad 6 over 3. So we have 3 values for x. Always check to make sure that the values for x is the same as the highest degree in the polynomial. Highest degree here is 3. 3 is indeed equal to 3. So we have solved that question. But that's pretty much everything I want to go over. Went over cross and box. We went over grouping, solving polynomials by factoring, rationalizing the denominator. And after all that, that's pretty much all I have. Let's head on over back to Isaiah.
Thank you, Vincent. That was an awesome lesson. I must say, you are just a godsend of a tutor. Let it be known you are very good at what you do. We are coming back here with Erica Fish, a co-host of Tabletop Spree, a show you might know. They review board games and make little skits. It's an awesome show. I quite love it a lot. So she will be going into her lesson. But real quick, if you guys want to become a tutor yourself, you guys can go over to this little QR code and fill out the forms there and join our Homework Hotline crew. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at HMG News, where you guys can see our edited versions of our Homework Hotline episodes every Monday. So, Erica, you taught Spanish last time. Is there any change this lesson?
Not really. We're still on Spanish, but we're doing something a little bit different.
Oh, fantastico. I'm sure you're much better at Spanish than I am. You go ahead and teach, all right?
No, you're amazing, Isaiah. Don't sell yourself short. Okay. So you may remember this was about 2 weeks ago. We went over conjugating AR verbs, but that was 2 weeks ago, and you guys might need a little bit of refresher. This is going to be mostly useful to Spanish 2 and Spanish 1 students, maybe even Spanish 3 if you want a quick refresher, though you probably have it down by now. Now, you might be looking at this and be like, Erica, this looks a lot like what we did last time, except a little different. Exactly, it is a lot like what we did last time because there's a pattern to it. We're going to go over what these pronouns mean again, just real quick, in case you guys, again, need a little refresher. Yo is I, tú is you, él, ella, he, she, ustedes can be he or she, but in a formal sense, so you would use it when addressing a teacher or a grandparent or just someone older than you, to be respectful. Nosotros is we, so you and someone else. Vosotros is you all, y'all, when you're addressing a group of people, but this is informal. So you use this with your friends. Don't use this with a teacher or a parent because that would be disrespectful. And then ellos, ellas, a group of boys or girls. And ustedes is, again, multiple older people that you're trying to be respectful to. So maybe it's both your parents or a group of teachers. You would use ustedes. Okay, cool. Now that we've gone over that, yo is going to stay the same for whatever you're conjugating in the present tense. This is all in the present tense, just so you know. So there's not gonna be any change in that from when you're conjugating AR verbs or ER verbs. They just stay the same. However, it does change a little when we go down to to. When you're conjugating AR verbs ends with AS, but instead it's going to end with ES when we're conjugating ER verbs. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. It's just like you're putting the E instead of the A because it ends in ER. Mind-blowing, I know. And then much the same, like with Ella, with L, Ea, or Stede, instead of A at the end, for third person singular, you're just going to put an E. Easy peasy. And then nosotros usually ends with in AR verbs, amos, so A-M-O-S. Instead, it's just an E instead of an A. Wonderful. Vosotros is S. So again, vosotros is a little weird. I know that, and I struggle with that sometimes. But a good way for pronunciation, if you see over here, I put a little pronunciation for versus speaking vosotros in AR verbs versus ER verbs. Let's say it's bailar, which is to dance. It would be bailais. So think of like ice. That's kind of the sound you're making. Versus vosotros, S is like kind of mess, but just take off the S. Cool. And then ellos and ustedes is en instead of an. So now we're going to go down here and conjugate comer. Comer is to eat, a very good verb to know, especially if you're in maybe a country where a lot of people don't speak English. It'd be good to know how to say to eat. So first, como. Simple, no problem, just the same. And then comes, if you're saying you eat, not I eat, you eat. And then maybe she or he eats, or my parent eats. Come. Come. And then maybe no, actually, we're both gonna eat. Me and my mom are gonna eat. Okay, comemos. Comemos. And then again, this is a little weird. Maybe you already ate and you want your group of friends that you brought me to eat. So vosotros comes, not comáis. Don't get it confused with AR. It's comes. And then a group of maybe both your parents need to eat. Comen. Really simple, really easy. If you just memorize the charts and you keep using them, you're gonna get more and more used to it. And after a while, don't get me wrong, after a while it's just gonna become like second nature when you're speaking in the present tense. So hope this helped, and I'm gonna send this back to Isaiah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. Felicidades, eres tan genial. It means congratulations, you are so cool. Don't tell Senora Perez. I Googled that. Anyway, that wraps up our show today. Thank you all so much, every single one of you. You guys are so much just awesome tutors and our behind-the-scenes workers as well. Angel, Brianna, Kendra, thank you guys for tuning in. Leticia, thank you for joining us, tutor as well. And thank you to our chat for being so supportive and tuning into our show every week. We'd love to have you guys, and we'd love to see you guys every week here on the show. Okay, well, if you guys want to become a tutor on the Homework Hotline, remember, go to our Instagram at hawkmediagroup.news or go to this little QR code right here and fill out the form there. And to watch us on YouTube, go to HMG News for more Homework Hotline, helping hands, goodness, all that. So if you guys ever need help on your homework, remember, you know who to call. Call the Homework Hotline. We'll see you guys next week.